Hello, and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen.
After more than 30 years, it's past time for a comprehensive review of native title legislation and how it operates in Australia.
Well, Pauline, I think that might be on the cards. Media release on the 30th of May. The report, tabled in federal parliament today, includes an example of legislation for a National Human Rights Act building on decades of work and reinforcing recommendations from the Australian Human Rights Commission's landmark Free and Equal report. And in the said Free and Equal report, on page 44, under Context for Reform, under Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander social justice, reform to native title, land rights, and heritage protection laws. In the recommendations, number 5, up again, E, that statements of compatibility include consideration of compliance with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Now, I know from the Greens and my cheat sheet that I've got from them. Number 9, review the native title legislation to make it consistent with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Labor. 20. This way of life has been acknowledged with the recognition of the traditional property rights of First Nations people who have the full protection of the law in exercising their common law rights of native title. However, not all First Nations people have equal access to the remedies provided under the native title. Labor will develop alternative strategies to redress the disposition of Australian First Nations people for whom native title recognition is not viable option. Western Australia Labor is committed to forms of governance for First Nations communities that fosters self-determination. That seems to be the UN thing, self-determination. And 23, Labor is committed to working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to eliminate the gap. It's not First Nations because that's a federal act, not state. So First Nations isn't in the federal yet. It's just working on it. So you look for justice. There's some commissioners and what they have written up here. Native title and heritage laws have specific legal processes to recognise traditional owner groups. Yuruk acknowledges the creation of these processes are part of the impact of colonisation. Yuruk is committed to being inclusive and to the promotion of self-determination. So land rights, native title, Vincent Linjara, Mabo case. Well, I suppose it went to the High Court and used the Westminster system, and that came off the First Fleet, didn't it? Yeah, colonisers. Our mandate uses a broad and inclusive definition of First Peoples, which includes the traditional owners of a place in Victoria, including family and clan groups and their ancestors. It also includes all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in Victoria or who have previously lived in Victoria. Anyway, let's learn a bit more about self-determination from the document that predates this one. Right, Victorian Aboriginal Affairs Framework 2018 to 2023. We acknowledge Aboriginal self-determination is a human right as enshrined in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and we commit to working towards a future of equality, justice, and strength. And that's Amos Roach. It's Archie Roach's son. Anyway, we've got a table of contents. Let's have a look at page 22. The VAAF is underpinned by Aboriginal self-determination. While UNDRIP gives us a language to talk about self-determination, Aboriginal Victorians must not feel constrained by the definition set out in UNDRIP. Inherent to self-determination is the right of Aboriginal Victorians to define for themselves what self-determination means. So it works, it is what community wants, and it's a human right. So there's some more things. Da, 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 da. Equity, human rights, self-determination initiatives honour the norms set out in UNDRIP and Victoria's Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act of 2006. And they will prioritise 4 key areas. Prioritise culture, promote greater understanding of and respect for Aboriginal culture and communities among non-Aboriginal Victorians, address trauma and support healing, embed trauma-informed policy and practice into funded services, recognising the leading role that Aboriginal organisations play in providing holistic cultural safe services to Aboriginal people and communities. That's also in the free and equal report in the recommendations to do. Ensure mainstream organisations and the wider community understand the ongoing impacts of colonisation and intergenerational trauma. Support members of the stolen generation and the descendants that's happened. There's up until 2027, there's a $100,000 package available. So 3, address racism and promote cultural safety. Ensure government departments, Aboriginal organisations and government-funded mainstream services are culturally safe and relevant. Ensure government departments, government-funded mainstream services and organisations and the wider community understand the impacts of colonisation, racism and unconscious bias. Increase the Aboriginal workforce across services, including in leadership roles. 2018. Anyway, transfer power and resources to community. Oh, actually, if you think about it, 2018, they're not First Nations or First People, they're Aboriginals. Anyway, support and resource self-determining Aboriginal governance structures at the local community level within Aboriginal organisations and through the pathway to treaty. Support traditional owner-led management and control of land and other natural resources. There, we've got a traditional owner instead of an Aboriginal in the document. I wasn't looking hard enough. Support community members as they work to advance and enforce their human rights. And back to Mabo again. So they prove the custom and laws are fundamental to their traditional systems of ownership and underpin their traditional rights and obligations in relation to the land. So that kind of does clash with self-determination model by the United Nations, doesn't it? Anyway, maybe I'm just being paranoid and there's nothing to worry about there. Or maybe there is.